Welcome back, guys, and I hope you all had a lovely Christmas, and I wish you all a very happy new year. Now, over the sort of Christmas period, I had a few messages on winter fishing, how to go about it. I would be here for forever talking about different things that you could do, but more importantly, it was how to prepare baits for winter time, whether you should be using fish meals, whether you should be using a bird feeder or milk protein mix, whatever it would be. Now, years ago, I wouldn't be advocating fish meals at all because of the high oil contents that were contained within the mix. Now that it's a bit different, they tend to be a bit of a blend, so if you've been catching well all year, it would seem a little bit daft to be changing your baits. Come the winter, you're doing all the hard work again. And I've caught really well on fish meals. Fish meals have come on leaps and bounds over the past sort of 10 or 15 years. So they don't contain as high oil content as they used to back in the late 80s and 90s. But saying that, I tend to fish mainly singles, especially sort of this time of year, you know, sort of early January, February time. And I tend to use bright, like most people, bright hook baits. Now there's different baits out there from different manufacturers. They all make great bait. And the liquids that you should be using as well. Now liquids always play a massive part in my winter fishing, and I know they do for thousands of other people out there. So I'm going to go through a few of what I would call the top 10 flavours that people use. And obviously you're not going to be surprised when I bring up the goose. Now this is the Pineapple Supreme. I tend to use the Supremes more than the other two. So you've got the Supreme, you've got the Smoke, and then you've got the Power Smoke. Obviously the Power Smoke's quite thick. I have used that in the winter time, but I tend to use the Supremes more so because they really eat into the bait. Now, do I use any other additives, any other liquids? The answer to that is yes. I tend to use the bait sprays. Now this is Tutti Frutti by Hinders. I've lost count on how many fish I've caught on Tutti Fruttis over the years. Also from Hinders, the Exo Carp. It's a really good bait, and I don't see many people using it. And also, and I'm running out of this now, and if I'm using plastic baits, fake corn, etc., or bits of foam for zig fishing, I always give them a dunk in the beetling. Now, it is really sweet. If you ever get it on your fingers and you taste it, it is really sweet, really sweet. And I've done extremely well over the years. I've done it in the normal beetling. This is the beetling and Tutti Frutti. So I tend to sort of mix it up a bit with different things. Obviously, do I use pop-ups or do I use wafters? Again, it depends on the venue I'm fishing, but I do tend to use more pop-ups in the winter than anything else. Obviously, the leaf debris gone onto the lake, it sinks, it rots. And if you're using a bottom bait, it can stink quite a bit. So I tend to use pop-ups more so than anything else. Now, these are Mainline's IB. I like small hook baits. These are only 12 mils, and these have been glazed in the pineapple and also the isotonic. Now they've literally only been glazed. They're not swimming in it. I've been in other guys' swims and they've pulled out a tub and it's literally well, it's ridiculous really. They think they're fishing with a pop-up when actually they're not. They're going to be fishing with probably a very slow sinking hook bait, because they will reduce the buoyancy. The more liquids you add into them, the less buoyant they're going to be. Simple as that. I will not go anywhere, and I mean anywhere, without the good old-fashioned Tutti Fruttis. They're as orange as the sun. I have caught thousands and thousands of carp on these over my 30 plus years of carp fishing. It was probably one of the first boilies I ever used I think it was Tutti Fruities and I think it was Plum Royale, I think, or Strawberry Jam. It was one of the two. And I've never forgotten them. Hinders are the only ones now that do the original Tutti Frutti. And they smell absolutely sublime. I live on my own, so I haven't got a missus to worry about. Not that it's a bad smell. Oh, but they're already primed and ready to go. I will be going in the next couple of weeks. I've got a social with a few friends, so those are definitely going to be in my bag. Also, don't just stick with high attract baits, whatever it be. Switch it up a bit. You can use naturals, you can use chopped worm, you can do, there's all sorts of things out there that you can use, and it's only limited by your own imagination. You can still use the goos, you can still use bait boosters. This is Tutti Frutti by Hinders. The other one that I use an awful lot during the winter months as well, and again it's by Hinders, and I'm not sponsored by Hinders. Before anybody shouts out, you know, I absolutely love the Mystic Plum. They smell absolutely divine. I've caught thousands of carp on these, but they only tend to come out in the winter months. They're a nice white colour. A lot of places I fish are all silty mere, so I think white is probably one of the best colours that you can use. And again, they're only just glazed, they're not swimming in it. I will quickly show you, I'll take the lid off these, on how much liquid I actually put into these. This is the Mystic Plum bait booster. This is thicker than the isotonic and the Pineapple Supreme. So there we go, the baits are in there, and I'm literally just gonna glaze the top, and that is it. That's all I'm going to use. Put the lid back on the bait booster before I knock it off my coffee table. Put the lid back on, give them a shake, get them all nicely coated. Take the lid off, have a quick check, have a quick smell as well. That smells absolutely gorgeous. As you can probably see, I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but they're nicely glazed. They're not swimming in it. You don't want them swimming in it. You still want the buoyancy there, but you want maximum traction, very little food. That's the old adage that I always say, and I tend to use those with a tiny small PVA bag of pellet. Probably bloodworm pellet is what I tend to use by sticky baits, and I have done for maybe 15 years or more. I really do like the bloodworm pellet by Sticky. Also, with anything PVA wise, you've got to make sure that it's PVA friendly, of course, but I tend to give the PVA bags a little bit of a bit of a dousing just before I cast out, or you know, if your missus allows, or do it in the garage. Get the pellet, and only put the amount of pellet that you're maybe going to use throughout that session, and just give your pellets a nice glazing before you put them in to your PVA bag. That's another trick. So that's what I tend to use. Also, I'm going to show you another little trick that I use in my armoury, and I tend to use, I mean, you can see how bright they are. They're really bright fluoro reds. Now these are a different mix. These are my own. Now these are, they're cylinder shaped. When I've obviously used them in the gun, I chop them up and I actually boil them in strips sort of, you know, 3-4 inches long, and then obviously I leave them to dry. Same process as you would do with a normal pop-up. I leave them for a few days and then I chop them up, put them into an old spare tub, and then I put the liquids over the top. Again, they're only glazed. Those are a different type of, they're a berry. Oh, these are, again, fluoro yellows. Now these have got pineapple goo, isotonic goo, and a bit of mango nana. So there's a bit of a mirage going on, but they smell absolutely divine. Again, they're not swimming in it, they're just coated. So the buoyancy is not going to be affected at all. And what I tend to use these for mainly is when I'm using maggots. Now obviously I'll put these onto there, I get, you know, half a dozen maggots and I thread them and they go on the top of these, and I have caught loads of carp doing that. Most people just tend to use a little, you know, little boilies, 15 mils, whatever it is, and you know, they catch, but I tend to try and mix it up a bit. So with the yellow ones, I tend to use white maggots quite a lot. But if I'm using the pinks, or should I say the bright reds, then I tend to use red maggots alone on the top. On the one rod, I might mix red and whites. On a middle rod, again with the same hook bait, and then just whites on the other. So I'm mixing it up, I'm not giving it the same old. And again, they're fished with maybe a small type PVA bag of a bloodworm pellet. And I normally give them a spray as well just before going out. Or if I'm using fake corn, etc., I do use that an awful lot. The Beetle, the Tutti Frutti seems to be the one I've done better on, but they do different ones in the range. And Hinders, I've got this absolutely spot on. Not sponsored by Hinders, but we sell this in the tackle shop and we sell an awful lot of it. So but I use that throughout the year, you know, spring and summer sometimes, but more so in the winter time. So if you're going to use liquids, go on the air side of caution. Only glaze your baits in them, don't have them swimming around in it. Also try using smaller hook baits than say 15 mils, 16s or 18s. Don't forget you're fishing for a bite at a time. Don't be fooled in what some others might say. Do your own thing. Fish for a bite at a time. You want to be catching them, not feeding them, and that's the best advice that I can give. I have touched on this on previous previous videos that I've done, but there seem to be quite a few that hadn't sort of grasped it. There's a lot of content out there on YouTube, on, you know, in tackle shops, etc. There's a vast variety. It can confuse, especially for the youngsters coming into the sport, and that's what this is really mainly aimed at. So the sort of three flavours that I like the most from the goo range, it's got to be, for me, pineapple supreme. I do quite like the mango nana as well, but my top one for the winter fishing has got to be the isotonic. Now I tend to use isotonic and pineapple together. It seems to be a great combination. You can have your I mean, if you're using plastic baits, you can have them swimming in it, because obviously it's never going to reduce the buoyancy of your plastic bait. But one that does seem to be overlooked a little bit, and I have done really well on it, more so coming out of winter into the spring, and that is the garlic. Now I tend to use the garlic alongside a powder. So once I've coated the baits in the garlic supreme, I might get a little bit of the garlic powder and put that over the top, give them a shake. Gives them another dimension as well, and God, do they honk. But it really does catch fish. And for those guys that really like to spice things up and like it a bit stinky, spicy squid. Now I tend to use this more into the spring months, but I won't use goose, and I don't use goose in the summer. They've really been hammered, or they would have been really hammered on bright single hook baits throughout the winter and into spring. So I tend to mainly fish match the hatch baits in the summer months. But I hope that helps. I hope it's cleared up a little bit of confusion. The world's your oyster. You're only limited by your own imagination. Go out there, get some flavours. You don't have to stick with just one. You can mix them up. Spicy squid and garlic. You can, yeah, the world, like I said, the world's your oyster. You can really, you could fall on something that really works well for that particular session. And obviously nobody else is going to be using it because it's unique to you. You know, spicy squid and garlic, who uses that? You know, sort of mango nana with pineapple. Like I said, the world's your oyster really, but those are the sort of liquid additives that I use to make my winter fishing just that little bit easier. So until next time guys, I wish you all the luck in the world, and thank you very much, and I'll see you all soon.